Hi all. This is a preview of the spring newsletter going out to subscribers at the moment of the Pisces new moon on Sunday morning, 3 a.m. Eastern Time, at the exact moment that the clocks spring forward. So daylight saving time begins, and when the clocks spring forward, I always feel like it's just a taste of being outside of linear time. So enjoy. The title is Spring Forward Psychic Forecast, Crystal Clear Sailing Over Rough and Stormy Seas. And the quote that begins the newsletter is from my favorite Dzogchen master, Ngak'chang Rinpoche. There's a link to some more of his quotes on my website, The Wisdom of Dzogchen, and the quote is, "Without this wearying world, we cannot find enlightenment. Without the responses, we would be bereft of the fabulous friction which illuminates our Buddha nature. We have to be the peace and quiet, rather than expecting the world to supply it," unquote. There we go. Dear one, I'm so incredibly excited and happy to share the very good news that on April 20th we'll be gifted by the universe with the most auspicious and rare planetary transit. That is the conjunction of expansive Jupiter and awakener Uranus at 22 degrees of earthy Taurus. This is one of the most significant astrological happenings of 2024, and its effects will be reverberating for many years to come. The energies inherent within this event ignite possibilities for a quantum leap in raising our consciousness and perspective to an entirely new level of operations that will redefine what the next generation of quote-unquote new normal will look like. The effects are almost entirely positive, except if one is prone to be carried away by distorted forms of overexuberance. This transit gives us the opportunity to not just think outside of the proverbial box, but to totally blow it up. Think Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, Bob Dylan, and Thomas Merton, to name just a few, who all had these benefic and revolutionary planetary energies in sync in their birth charts, either by conjunction or opposition. Quote by Albert Einstein, quote, "I didn't arrive at the fundamental laws of the universe through my rational mind," unquote. Perfect quote for this conjunction. In addition to our innate Buddha nature, we also contain the capacity to open our vertical channels wide enough to be fed directly from source and become channels of light. And because this transit is a booster rocket to accelerate operating from our inherent lighthouse function, going forward we can begin to experience how to be an overflowing support of compassion and loving kindness to all suffering beings who have not yet been fortunate enough to open to their Buddha nature / lighthouse potentials. From this, we'll discover an entirely new skill set in navigating the relentlessly unpredictable nature of 3D by affecting the tone of all those around us with peace and equanimity in the flow, aka crystal clear sailing, rather than being affected by it. There's a link to psychic empowerment practices, which will help you affect the reality around you rather than be affected by it. Then there's a quote, there's a picture of Tibetan monks joyously exhilarating, enjoying a roller coaster ride as it's going down, and the caption under it is, "This includes an unending appreciation of the ride's exhilarating aliveness just the way it is." In the old paradigm, it was human nature to prefer to cling to an attachment to the calmer waters of safety, security, and illusions of control. But in our new way of being, we may actually begin to find enjoyment in the rough and tumble nature of the earth game, with each moment's death-defying potentiality making our time here that much more precious and poignant, not to mention cosmically humorous for those so inclined. Whenever Jupiter and Uranus meet up, which happens approximately every 14 years or so, they generate brilliance and off-the-charts innovation. This challenges the established order by creating radically new solutions to our most pressing problems, which will make our old operating systems obsolete. On the personal level, this means addressing karmic ruts of identity and belief systems we've outgrown, and on the global level by addressing climate change and other man-made disasters. By supplying genius level, aka channeled insights, these new operating systems will radically transform those of us who are ready, and thus in the ripple effect transform political, societal, and economic realms over time. From a historical perspective, the last time Uranus was conjunct Jupiter in Taurus was in 1941, coinciding with the U.S. entering World War II and women entering the workforce in large numbers. The training of an all-black squadron of Air Force in Tuskegee, Alabama during this transit was a first, allowing them to pilot fighter craft in World War II. In the past, these exact same planetary energies led to technical advances for the war effort, some crucial and others devastating, including the creation of the atomic bomb. So, interesting, that movie this year is about that creation. And at the timing of this transit, it will be in the news in the spring. So what does this particular Jupiter-Uranus conjunction hold for us? On a mundane level, these synergistic energies are a much needed push that propels us into the future with much more flexibility in the flow. It is gearing us up for 2025 when 3 generational, aka transpersonal planets finally settle into new signs, signifying the start of a new era. This includes Uranus in Gemini from July 2025 to May 2033. Neptune moves into Aries from April 2025 until March 2039. And last but certainly not least, Pluto in Aquarius, March 2023 through January 2044. Pluto returned to Aquarius for the second time from January 20th, 2024, and will be there until September 1st, 2024. It then shifts back into Capricorn one last time for over 225 years, while the planet is in retrograde, where it will remain until November 19th, 2024. The last months of 2024 mark the end of the United States Pluto return, which began in 2022. It is very meaningfully coinciding with a crucial election, heralding a potential return. Let us pray to the founding principles which made America a beacon for freedom around the world. For each of us personally, we'll need to look to where we have this most lucky conjunction transiting in our birth charts to prepare to make the most out of this consciousness expanding transit. We can do this by locating which house, aka area of our inner and outer lives, contains 22 degrees Taurus. This position in us and in our lives will be the primary area of focus for our illumination. And to get your chart for free, go to astro.com. And of course, there couldn't be a better time to have your transits updated for the year with a special focus on how this rare planetary event will be a personal life changer, as this one is always positive if handled with care. For that reason, I would love to be the one to deliver the good news as well as the warning labels where applicable. And then there's a link to my astrological services. Added to this, we're still resonating from the conjunction last month of the North Node of Destiny and Warrior Aries, conjunct Wounded Healer Chiron. These energies signify a time when we'll have the full support of the universe in stepping up to heal our deepest karmic wounds. This transit will fast-track our alignment with our highest dharmic path by carrying us through the excavation of our most defended, repressed, and or terror-provoking karmic PTSD. And for more, there's a link to shocks to the system are triggering karmic PTSD in everyone. All the links can be activated if you go to the link provided here for the copy of my newsletter, written copy on my website, and then you can click on the links. Since Master Healer Chiron is in the midst of several years moving through enthusiastic initiating Aries, there couldn't be a better time to commence a reinvigorating quantum level of healing as we co-create a totally new vision for who we are becoming. Then there's a picture of a turquoise bowl that's been broken and mended with gold, pure gold. And in the Japanese art form of kintsukuryu, the philosophy is to mend the cracks and broken things with gold, thus making what has been broken even more valuable than before. So too will the buried cracks in us, healed by embracing our woundedness, be the alchemical gold that transforms our heart minds. Taoists don't differentiate, and makes us that much stronger. On a personal note, I've just been through 2 years of a massive transit of Transformer Pluto crossing 5 times back and forth like a steamroller over my ascendant and north node, aka my persona and dharmic path. And since Pluto operates through cycles of death and rebirth, I've experienced all the parts of my karmic identity that no longer serve, disintegrating and dissolving. So, now, as I do my morning sitting practice in the inner emptiness of the void, I can truly say, nobody's home, with more and more bliss spontaneously arising. There's a link on the article on pleasure, joy, and bliss. To top it all off, just a few months ago, Pluto the Annihilator, aka Kali the Devourer in the female form, gave me one more big karmic whack-a-mole as she was leaving Capricorn. Here's the backstory from 2012. Quote, "The journey of coming into my psychic power has been a bumpy ride, karmically speaking, to say the least. I have had to do a lot of work on myself on all levels over these last 40 years to be able to handle the level of responsibility that comes with these abilities and function. Because my karmic blocks towards coming into power were inhibiting me at each stage of putting my work out there with deep immobilizing fears, I had to avail myself of past life regression therapy when I was in my 30s to keep me from shutting down the full flowering of the gift and sabotaging my soul assignment for this incarnation. Using my own regression techniques and with my partner Jim Rush, a healer, as conductor, we confirmed in a series of sessions that I had indeed been whacked, tortured, or had my eyes put out by fire in multiple past lives of psychic power, to name a few of the karmic cellular fears I've dealt with. No wonder each stage of coming into my psychic power has brought up new layers of irrational, from this life's perspective, feelings that my safety was being threatened. Now, because of the TV show, even more intense levels of alarm have arisen and need to be consciously worked with and dissolved. But thanks to the past life regression and the continuous releasing and dissolving of karmic fears that I do for myself, this has been more manageable and much less irrationally terrifying and immobilizing than in the 80s. And this is an excerpt, unquote, this is an excerpt from Psychic Therapy, the backstory of how the universe pushed me into confronting my deepest karmic fears by putting me on television. There's a link there. All the above being said, until this past November, I've still kept the deepest inner levels of karmic PTSD under wraps externally for the 70 years of this incarnation, although not too successfully hidden from myself. That is, I've been aware enough to avoid doing any ongoing intensive psychic therapy or counseling with prospective clients with major eye karma because of an inner knowing that it would activate deeper levels of my own. So until I booked with dread my first cataract surgery for February 15th, 2024, I never fully experienced the activation of my deepest unresolved terror of fire, aka laser, getting anywhere near my eyes ever again. The jig was indeed up. And then, in less than a day, clients with eye karma came flooding in, just in time for me to cultivate even more gratitude for while I am regaining 20/20 long-distance vision one eye at a time, after many lives, including this one of being legally blind. Simultaneously, I'm now counseling others who are losing their vision completely. In the weeks leading up to the surgery, which I insisted be with general rather than the usual twilight anesthesia so I wouldn't risk moving at all, as this is what causes most complications, I experienced a nightly reenactment, visceral in the extreme, of being held down and having my eyes put out by fire. Nightly reenactment, yes. The karmic cliff notes are that this occurred in a life as a male prophet in ancient Palestine in a time of oppressive rule by the invading Assyrians. After I got a little too publicly political and started ranting from street corners, i.e. my spiritual ego got too big for my psychic britches, I got punished by having my eyes put out. And the karmic consequences of that hubris are finally unwinding one layer at a time. At the exact moment of the trauma, I swore I would never again step into my psychic power publicly, and especially politically. Consequently, at that time, I also shut down the yang warrior side of my psychic powers, and have only allowed the well-developed yin function of being a channel of light energy and information be dominant, but have never risked claiming any regenerative healing functions until now. And for more, there's a link to a historical perspective from not Wikipedia or Britannica. Anyway, it's goes back to what was going on at that time in history. I tried to blame my mother in that life as well as this for encouraging a messiah complex, but forgave her after doing past life regression therapy about our karma in that life and many others. Although she truly did believe she was the reincarnation of the Virgin Mary and had a portrait of herself painted as a Madonna hung under an eternal light right outside my bedroom door growing up. I kid you not. For more details on my mother karma, there's a link to my memoir, Cosmic Sugar. Where I'm at now. I'm writing this in a transition I'm reading this in a transition bardo, eyesight-wise, as I heal from the first surgery on my right eye done on February 15th, and awaiting my second and final surgery on my left eye to fully restore my vision and heal the deepest karmic wound on April 18th. Yes. I will be opening both my eyes with 20/20 distance vision within 2 days of the major Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. It is happening right on the nadir, which is the 4th house cusp, which is at 22 degrees Taurus, exactly in my chart. The deepest part of my core of being in my birth chart. You can't make this stuff up. Now that I've shared mine, deepest karmic wound, I hope you'll become ready to share yours, at least with yourself. That being said, if you'd like some clarity on any particular karmic PTSD symptoms that are arising, please know that I'm here for you for an Akashic Record soul reading on the phone or in person in New York City. And if you're really ready to dive deeply into the cosmic ocean of consciousness for a visceral experience of quantum healing to move you to the next quantum level of your evolution, past life regression therapy, the core of psychic therapy, is also available in person in New York City only. Then there's links for soul readings and psychic therapy. Then there's a picture of a volcanic crater lake, one of my favorite pictures. In closing, just as ever-increasing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are creating bigger cracks in the earth these days, so too are the higher frequency galactic energies now bombarding the planet, creating bigger cracks in each and every one of us, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. Is this good news or bad news? Well, time will tell, as it always does, but in my view, these accelerating energies, which I've called the quickening for decades, there's a link there, are heralding in the next great age in the evolution of human consciousness. If we look around us, we can surely see the major split in the mass consciousness between those who are opening to these light energies and those who aren't yet, out of fear and ignorance. So while we can expect some quote-unquote rough and stormy seas as the next great age moves in with increasing velocity, it's important not to indulge in the wasted energy of worry, anxiety, or what I like to call metaphysical angst, as it will all even out over the next few millennia. Taoists maintain a very long-range perspective on the earth game. The first stage in this consciousness evolution is to allow the quickening to quote-unquote encourage us to crack open so that our wounds can rise to the surface to be healed on all levels, karmic, mental, emotional, energetic, and physical. As then, there will be so much more room for light to flow in. If you've been experiencing your deepest wounds coming up to be healed this winter, especially if this is a recurring theme on deeper and deeper levels throughout this incarnation, you're right on schedule. Therefore, if you'd like an astrological and a psychic reading to help clarify how to heal on all levels going forward, please feel free to contact me so we can discuss how to make the most of this current FGO, an acronym for fucking growth opportunity for you. How to make the most of your current fucking growth opportunity as I am of mine. I'm looking forward to being a support for you on our healing journey together. Wishing us all the perfect healing adventure and consciousness in the flow. How could it not be so? And signing off, there's a personal quote from me, from Rumi. Quote, there is an animal called a porcupine. If you hit it with a stick, it extends its quills and gets bigger. The soul is a porcupine, made stronger by stick beating. So a prophet's soul is especially afflicted because it has to become so powerful. Unquote. Then there's a picture of one of my favorite paintings, Going with the Flow. And the ending quote is from Leonard Cohen. Quote, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Unquote.